Thank you, Sam. You'll hear me, is it a bit too overwhelming? In this very big room. I feel like a very small person. Thank you, Sam. Thanks for inviting me. I'm so happy to support Tech for Good. I love supporting small communities doing things in the creative, tech, and human space, coming together for kind of a purpose larger than the obvious, and really happy to be here. So thanks for the invite. There's your thank you, Star Foundation. Thank you. So, good morning, Morena, tēnā koutou katoa. It's good to be here, and thanks again for the invitation. So, as you can see, I'm a very creative person, and this is really like the top level at which I can actually create. Because in fact, I wanted to be a creator. I wanted to be an artist or a really good writer. But I wasn't that talented. Okay? And I saw an opportunity to still stay close to creativity by going into commercial creativity. And by this, I went to work in advertising. As a business lead, as an account management person in advertising, because this way I could get really close to creative product and creative people, and I could somehow be that link between sort of magic and logic, which I always call it. And I went to first work at this awesome office in this amazing city. For those of you who haven't been there, this iconic place called Cape Town, South Africa. As you can hear, I'm South African, and worked at Ogilvy and made the Right Fit Soul Trip and Make It was called at those days. And they always said the most talented person in the building was actually the receptionist, because she had to say that 1,000,000 times a day when people called. From this amazing office and from this amazing opportunity, I moved to another extraordinary city or town. But if anyone wants to guess where this is? Yeah, Switzerland, yeah. It's in Switzerland. It's in a town called, it's a town or city called Lausanne. And they lived happily for five years working on this fantastic brand. If you're going to work on tobacco, I know. Amazing to work on such a beautiful design icon. I mean, there is no better or more beautiful design box of cigarettes, dare I say it, than Lucky Strike, actually designed by the famous designer Raymond Loewy. He actually designed the Coca-Cola bottle and the Shell logo. So just kind of, useless bits of information that I'm just sharing. But a real adventure working on tobacco, working on Lucky Strike, and also working as a marketer, understanding constraints, to work within constraints, because of course with tobacco there were already legislation coming in more and more about how much or how little you could actually have a voice in the market. And what does that do when you've got a constraint, when you've got a small little sandbox, you have to play inside it. And I think it really pushed my ideas and thinking around actually how creative we could be within the world of constraints. And in between all of this, I married a Kiwi, which kind of explains partly why I'm here, and how my adventures changed. And going to Switzerland with my then boyfriend, now husband, actually sitting in the room tonight, is partly where my New Zealand adventure came in. But before then, went back to South Africa and rejoined Ogilvy, this time in the city of Johannesburg. And here is where I really took a huge leap of faith and decided, whilst I definitely wanted to be in the creative industries, I was interested in more, and I wanted to do more. And that kind of silly insight, which is something we all kind of could think about as the best way to have a dream job, it doesn't exist, is you must create it. It doesn't matter what corporate role you're doing, whatever you're doing, the dream job you want, you can make as much of as you want to. And so I pitched a ridiculous idea of a title that had never been in the ad industry that I could find, and convinced the joint CEOs that I wanted to be the Chief Marketing and Talent Officer of Ogilvy South Africa. And fantastically, they bought it. And this role for me was the most interesting, because what this allowed me to do was apply brand and marketing thinking, not just externally for a creative business, but also internally at the people who work there, and see how those would marry up. Because the reality is that as digital became pervasive, you couldn't tell one story on the outside, which companies still sometimes do, and have a different narrative going on the inside. If you're going to treat external clients in a particular way, it's probably best that you start at home and treat them in the same way. So kind of matching brands, matching philosophy and culture became kind of my obsession and an area that I was so interested in. I went and did, oh look at me, my younger self. I went and did a master's at the Berlin School of Creative Leadership because I wanted to help creative companies. I wanted to work in creative companies where I could understand more and more about what turned creative people on, what made creative leaders great, and how to manage creativity. Because it's not like managing other areas of business. It's so subjective. The people are so interesting. We herd tigers, as you know, it's that beautiful expression about herding cats, but it's actually herding tigers. How to take people's brilliance and actually grow it and build it for commercial purpose and commercial success. Did lots of research understanding creative industries more, and wrote a thesis around the fact that advertising agencies, but most creative companies, are like the cobbler's children who have no shoes. We tend to innovate and ideate for everyone else and then forget about ourselves. And what is it bad about the human condition, and what is, how does that translate in business? And it was just a topic I was fascinated in. Graduated and then came back to start my own consultancy called Mrs. Woolf in South Africa, but with clients abroad too, which was interested in helping creative businesses thrive and survive through the complexity of modern business. I only wanted clients that were either in the creative economy or were interested in creativity as a business tool for growth. They realized and recognized that brands and creativity actually made good business sense. And so wonderful clients who were investing in their own brands. And then COVID. It's a couple of years ago, and this is, in homage to Schitt's Creek, my favorite TV show. And of course, COVID hit, and it took me to another, also not such bad looking city. And after coming backwards and forwards for years, a decision to come back home for our family to New Zealand. My husband had done his time in South Africa. It's my turn on this side of the world. And so to Auckland we came. And here over the last 2 years, I've had a chance to do collaborations and some projects on the New Zealand side of things, as well as continue some projects abroad. Last year I worked on the See Tomorrow First project with NZ Tech in a collaboration with Augusto Method and Archer Comms. That was really the first project that I did that really touched the New Zealand ecosystem, working with NZ Story, working with NZTE, really fascinating for me. The only downside to it was that the project started on the day we went into lockdown. And the project finished literally a week or two after we came out of lockdown towards the end of the year. So got to meet the team finally in real life at that point. So, and that's where I'm going to sort of park the background and go into what I came here to chat to you about today, which was a little bit about Web3. A little bit about the new internet or the new technologies that are starting to push us forward out of Web 2, which completely accelerated and went nuts over COVID, right? So how it started for me, and this is really my own sort of curiosity journey, I suppose, is that my husband got into cryptocurrency or started getting interested in cryptocurrencies in about 2017, 18. Really new, really nascent. And I was really interested. I kind of peek over your shoulder at these charts. And like, what's this? Oh no, charts, Excel spreadsheets, get me out of here. And but I was intrigued, and I actually had a lot of FOMO. I was like, I don't understand this. What is this all about? And so his foray into cryptocurrency and into DeFi, into decentralized finance, as well as the fact I have 2 teenage boys who game. And it's also, they've been doing this for years, and I kind of turn a blind eye. And if you've got kids or got family members who have gaming kids and are constantly trying to get them off Fortnite and constantly trying to get them off their devices playing games, I developed over COVID, and after spending lots of time with my kids, like a newfound respect for gaming. I was like, oh my God, this is actually quite interesting. Like, this is actually quite cool. And actually, these worlds that they're living in are quite consumed by. They've got technology and storyline and creativity at levels like I hadn't really thought about before. I'd just seen it as like the devil. And so those 2 things led me to suddenly have an interest in wanting to learn more. Plus the fact I thought, I'm going to be left behind. Like, this is not the beginning of my career. I'm like in my 4th career, I want to stay ahead of the curve, or at least stay like on it slightly. I want to know what my kids are talking about. I want to understand the media that I'm reading. I actually want to be like with the program a little bit. So I want to be able to go to the water cooler at a client and like at least, have some of the lingo up my sleeve, so I'm not completely out of it. So that was kind of important to me. And so I went down the proverbial rabbit hole, which is what they call it, of learning. Because every click you do to find out more about what an NFT is, you suddenly get taken to blockchain, and then you get taken to software development, and so you just keep going. And I just kind of got lost on new platforms, new ways of thinking, and kind of came out a bit exhausted out the other side, between the project, between my learning. I went to places I'd never been. I started hanging out in Clubhouse. I started going into Twitter spaces. I learned that Twitter isn't really Twitter. There's actually crypto Twitter. There's actually metaverse Twitter. There's like Twitter for everybody. Twitter is like the most, the kind of most evil, most wonderful, most all-consuming platform to go and micro-learn. So I went to all these interesting places. I got into Discord. I've got I follow so many kind of groups on Discord. I'm part of this group and that group, and kind of went very broad and have slowly started to kind of opt out of some of the groups that I joined in the early days, and really stayed within communities that I thought, oh my goodness, this is like really great. I found out things about OpenSea. I started following the streaming of some conferences, international conferences, so became a little bit obsessed. But having said all of that, I'm still an absolute newbie. This space is so vast and so deep, and depending on where you're coming from, if you're a dev person, if you are a dev person, you're going to really go deep into blockchain and other technologies. If you're a creative brand person, for me, I'm interested particularly about how brands show up in these spaces. I'm interested about how things are designed, what they look like, where the idea is. Those are the things that kind of have grasped me. And so my journey looks different to other people. Gary's interest is really, he's an engineer, so Gary's interest is in like, how does everything work? How does the blockchain actually work? How does mining work? How does the decentralized exchanges work? And my brain is wired like that. So it's a beautiful space to explore because there's something there for everyone. And of course, there's a very big space there for humanity. How is this all going to affect him? You would just say you were at the AI conference the last couple of days. I mean, AI, AR, all these new technologies are really enormous in this space. And so honestly, you can drive yourself completely nuts. But there's spaces for everybody to learn. And even if you just understand the broad concepts, it's interesting. So like I said, I'm interested in how creativity impacts and is going to be impacted by this new world. So in my journey, the first person I came across was a lady by the name of Kathy Hackle. And she's known anecdotally as the godmother of the metaverse. And Kathy's been on about the metaverse since, some of us were born. She's really believed that all these worlds, particularly led by gaming, are going to all converge and we're going to all live, work, play in a virtual space. And she got into it basically through fashion, was her primary lens. And now Kathy has written several books and is really a thought leader in the space.
around the metaverse. And so I followed her. She did a custom podcast on Ag Week about the metaverse, and I learned kind of the basics from her. And it intrigued me because she's a brand person, she's highly creative, quite academic, and I was like, I want to be Kathy. And then I have a friend that I studied with. She's working for a company called Journey, which is a metaverse company. They do kind of white label metaverses for clients. At the moment, it's about a 3 or 4 month lead time. It costs you an arm, a leg, a kidney, and 7 gallbladders to actually afford to take on one of the metaverses for your own brand. And that's me and my avatar in one of their worlds that they invited me to for one of their events. I've been into their BMW Joytopia, I've been into Vogue Business, and they create metaverses for clients who are wanting to show or signal that their brand is up to date and we're so cool, we live in the metaverse. And this is happening more and more, brands wanting to signal that they're with it. Just like me, we're with it, we're cool, we know what's going on, we're virtual, we in the space. So I've learned how to drive myself in the Journey world. It's still quite rudimentary. I don't look very glam. I don't have great avatar accessories yet, but I'll show you it's coming. And I could travel and with my sort of, just with my cursors and my mouse, I could travel around. I learned to fly. This is just the beginning. And so I had fun, and I realized that the idea is that you do this from your laptop. The idea is not that you're going to have to go. You're going to be able to zone in even from your mobile telephone into new worlds. And I think this is like my favorite explanation of the metaverse. For those of you who might still think like, what is it? It's a long conversation, it could be here for hours, but it's really the shift in a digital ecosystem that always felt flat. It feels flat. And now if you imagine that it's tilting up and going 3D, that your interactions will remain. You will talk to people instead of talking at them, you will talk to them. And I just find that mentally it's quite an easy way to understand that the metaverse is just going to be experienced in the first person as opposed to currently how we experience in the third person. And it's astonishing to me the numbers that are being thrown around as to what the financial upside or the scope is for metaverse activities going forward. And this is now the Boston Consulting Group report that came out in August. I mean, figures have been thrown around. 1 trillion is not the most even that I've seen in a report as to what the metaverse expects to gain financially as it basically kind of explodes on this meteoric rise. There are lots of people who are skeptical about this. And I guess you've got to decide how much or how little either people you work with or for or in your own business is actually going to realize in the space. And you should be in the space. It may not be for everybody. But it definitely is having an impact. This is Ready Player Me. Their business is basically, like I said, they create the clothing and the accessories for the metaverse, for augmented and digital worlds. They have just secured, I think it's over $50 million in second B round funding for their business. That is how much money, that is how much faith there is that this ecosystem, this metaverse is going to mean business and has enormous possibility. So, I mean, personally, like, I'm not going to look like this when I'm in the metaverse. I look at this, I'm going to say, I think I'll take that pink mini dress. I think I'll take, I love that pink wig. Quite like the Converse, quite like the trainers. And already you can get a glimpse of where this is going in the world of brands. Because if you imagine some of those accessories and clothing, it's going to be branded. There's going to be Converse, there's going to be Nike, that's going to be Gucci, that's Ferragamo, that's going to be Tommy Hilfiger, and you're going to pitch up with items that you have either been sponsored by because you're a celebrity, or you're going to have purchased them, either in the metaverse, or you're going to have gone and purchased them, and you're going to walk around like you might want to in the real world, with all your designer stuff on that you've paid a fortune for, and that you have used technology to procure. You will have used NFTs,
sitting in the background as the enabling technology to actually purchase those. And it will be seamless. So there is so much happening in the space, and I wish I had time. It's endless. I try and just really monitor the feeds that I follow so that I stay abreast of the things that fascinate and interest me, and still come back to a way that I can still add value to projects and clients that I work with, even if they're not in the space at all. I just think understanding where things are going, or have a sense of what's happening, and in a way that's digestible, which I hope so far is. Hands up, it is, it's not. In a way that's digestible, will also help people journey through Web3. And I came across this, and I think it's a beautiful thought about the new technologies, about Web3, is that a future where distance and time do not stand in the way of feeling present. And I think that's a beautiful way to encapsulate what new technologies are able to help us to do. And for those of us who don't live close to those that we love or care about because they're on other continents and in other places, we saw through COVID, Zoom and Google Meets became firstly a personal and then a professional lifeline. And as technology grows, and I can feel somehow more physically present to those that I want to spend time with, that could be a real gift, a real gift. So the other area that, other than the metaverse as part of Web3, although metaverse isn't actually part of Web3, but it's a technicality, I also love art, and it is a deep passion of mine. So the other area that I couldn't help land on when exploring the space was NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Now, these have become like mysterious, they're a bit of a swear word. There's so much controversy around them. You probably read a lot of bad press about them. Does anyone own any NFTs in the room? Yeah, cool. Okay, great. So, very overwhelming. Firstly, who gives like a sexy new tech name, non-fungible token? It's like, yeah, here's something amazing. It's called a non-fungible token. It's like really, like they needed a marketer. Like it was like a bad job. And I think in the future, terms like NFTs, blockchain, like so much of the language that you're hearing and is intimidated, will kind of recede into the background. It will just be the technology that enables the way we do things. And those names are going to recede. Transacting with the NFTs is just going to be a way of transacting, just like you pay online. Like there were terms that were around doing banking transactions. Maybe some of you remember them. Like, are you going to do an EFT, which was an electronic fund transfer? Like we don't speak like that, right? But at the time it was like an electronic fund transfer. So I think about NFTs like that and don't be too intimidated or concerned about it. But I was concerned about it with art. And art is just one of multiple usages and multiple use cases for NFTs. And why did art first surface as NFTs? Well, because creative people dig in first. Creative people are not afraid. They want to get involved. Oh my God, new technology, I want to play, let's do this. Let's sell something for $2.5 million that we've been collecting little JPEGs for a few months. They're brave. So this to me made total sense, like that NFTs didn't start off as like, let me think of one of the use cases that's not so sexy. So a use case that's not so sexy would be kind of security. Security. NFTs are going to be huge in sort of online security now. No. Okay, great. That's art. And this really kind of upset the apple cart and threw everyone into. But it's just a JPEG. How can you pay X amount for it? So NFTs are still difficult for me even to explain exactly what they are, and I certainly don't want to humor you guys and kind of sort of start from the absolute scratch, but I've tried to just simplify it, and I think this does the best job for me, is that they are birth certificates for the offspring of creators. They are certified. It's like owning a certificate of authenticity
for a piece of digital content that you actually own. Can somebody else replicate it and also have it? Yes, but you own the code. And only you can choose when, if, and how, and to whom you sell it to. So it's like a certification, a digital certification. So this is like the longest slide that I have up here. And it's not a test or anything, but if you're interested and you're at a knowledge level, it would be interesting to read these couple of lines for more of an explanation of what an NFT is. And then you'll be like a rock star. We want to take a photograph of it. Please go ahead. But I really don't want to kind of, anticipate that, anybody's level of understanding of what an NFT is. So it's really a digital certificate. It's a piece. It cannot be replicated, even though it seems as if it can. And it's an ownership of an asset and a piece of code that sits on the blockchain. And you can buy and sell them online, frequently with cryptocurrencies. At the moment, most NFTs are transacted using Ethereum as the cryptocurrency. And I think the thing to get around your head in the use case with regards to community projects and art is that it's like art that you may have, or things that you may have which are scarce. So it's the same theory as, why would you buy a Gucci bag if you could buy the copy of it in a market somewhere and have exactly the same one? It's the same thing as, why have a piece of art up on your wall? How can you attribute that ridiculous value to it? Because at the end of the day, it still comes to this idea around scarcity. Things only have value to the people that they have value to. And what marketers and very smart projects have done is they've created huge value and hype around NFTs. And they've made them feel scarce, which they are. And they've also done something very interesting and so human, is that they have given people a sense of community and belonging. Because they are scarce and they're generally done in batches or kind of limited editions, like you would buy, let's say, art or an artist within limited editions, when you own one, you become de facto part of a community. And this is the thing that was not expected, and it happened during COVID, where people were online, and if they purchased an NFT, they became immediately part of a community, generally of like-minded people, or who were interested in that particular token doing very well, because then everybody would win. So you want your NFT to gain value, you want your NFT to do well within its ecosystem, so that if you choose to trade it, you'd have an upside, right? So it is quite mind-blowing. So does anyone guess how much the NFT market grew percentage-wise from the previous year in 2021? Now, all of us were in lockdown, what the percentage growth was in the sale of NFTs.
Like 10,000%.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah. What did you say? 10,000. Any other guesses? Is it not winner, chicken dinner? Okay, there you go. 21,000%. It's the greatest growth in a product service or that's ever happened in like all recorded time. Sales of over $18 billion in 2021, more than the year before. Right. It's for something like 570-fold growth from the year before. I mean, what are we talking about here? It's like insane. And yeah, I mean, it's just historic, meteoric rise of NFTs. And just to put it into perspective, the most expensive NFTs currently out there are the Bored Ape Yacht Club project. There are 10,000 NFTs. They are owned from everyone from Justin Bieber to Snoop Dogg to Gwyneth Paltrow, I think, owns one, and then other very, lucky, I would say, investors. $2.31 million is the price that was paid for the most expensive NFT, most expensive Bored Ape. I mean, wow, 2.31. And it's still the record holder of all NFTs. At the moment, just out of interest, You can pick one up for about 130,000 US dollars. The top price paid that I showed you before was actually for one that has very specific and rare traits, because every NFT or a lot of NFT projects have different traits. So this bored ape over here, because he has an eye patch, is probably worth more than that bored ape because it doesn't have an eye patch. So traits determine value in a lot of these kind of generative art projects. Now, at the moment, it's a real bear market, and in the bear market, you can pick up a bored ape with very few rare traits, almost no rare traits, for the bargain price of 130,000. And people are desperate to get into the bored apes because what is it? You're in a community of 10,000 people, many of them celebrities, rock stars, interesting people from all different places. The community gets together virtually. The community gets together IRL, in real life, like us today. They get given opportunities to buy things at prices nobody else does. They become this valuable, highly sort of sought after community because of the people, the community that make up part of it. And all the activities become possible through technology. So if you get offered 100% of the purchase of a new Cartier watch and you're a bored ape holder, the way you verify that you are is completely transparent because it's on the blockchain. You can't just say, hi, I've got a little JPEG of this monkey, so can I have the Cartier watch? No, you've got a wallet, and your wallet has got a unique identity, and that tells them that you are absolutely the owner of that piece of digital code. So I said before, it's got a bad rap. Here's a few stories that I think are quite funny, but maybe not. There's been a lot of kind of projects that have given NFTs a bad rap. Firstly, my personal experience, the first NFT that I bought, Gary helped me get a ledger, a sort of hard wallet, took me through the process of actually finding, buying, processing. We looked together at how we would buy the NFT. What we didn't know at that point, and it became hugely prolific after that, is that hackers and very, very smart people, I think, have made more money out of NFTs than NFTs themselves, have these kind of duplicated or sort of blind websites. And I was so excited that my first NFT was going to be Shepherd Fairy, an Obey Giant, or known as Obey Giant. One of his NFTs, Gary and I were so excited. We did our purchase through OpenSea, and it never arrived in my wallet. I was like, what's going on? Anyway, scammed. First and last time, of course. Learned the tricks of the trade, learned that there are these shadow websites out there. They are very, very smart. Hackers are very, very smart. But there are far more securities in place now than they were. And we're also super, super cautious. We have cold wallets. And this project is an interesting one. I don't know if anybody knows this project. Anyway, I remember first hearing about the Pixelmon project, this massive rug pull, it's called, where a project was sold out basically within seconds, this project, over 100 million US dollars for the project, and the artwork was revealed, because only once you've minted, then the artwork gets revealed. It was revealed like this. Now, there is some bad art out there in the NFT world, I get it, but this was like at another level. In fact, some of the NFTs didn't even emerge. Like, you'd have like a screen with like an eye. It was just so poorly done and pixelated. But anyway, this project is a youngster, 20-year-old youngster from Hamilton. And this youngster, he's 20 years old. He's a 100K, billion richer for this project. And so there were a lot of dodgy projects, and you still have to be really cautious about what you want to be into and what communities you want to be a part of. But there are also some spectacular projects and some spectacular successes. And the Fluffs, New Zealand-based NFTs, it's the minimum in NFT, really a huge ecosystem built here in New Zealand by companies like Non-Fungible Labs in partnership with Altered State Machine and other incredible 3D designers around New Zealand to create the world of the Fluffs. And the Fluffs are regularly up in the top 10 NFTs globally, and really just an extraordinary success. And their technology is so cutting edge and so fascinating, and they really are fully, going full balls to the wall into AI in a very serious way, and really are just an extraordinary success story. But me personally, I followed a journey where I felt I had to go from this really wide range into a much more narrow range. And I decided that I wanted to locate myself in projects that I thought were trying to do better things for people in the world. And I focused my interest in female-based projects, in female founders who I thought were starting projects and selling NFTs to create communities that mattered. And so I started following projects like World of Women. I was always interested in who the artist was. And World of Women is probably the most valuable female-led and female-focused NFT currently. The artist, it's also 10,000 generative artworks, and it's all about diversity and powerful women. Really, Woman Rise is another community which I follow. I feel connected to what they were trying to do, connected to the artist that they were brave enough to go with. And she's a huge spokesperson for diversity, inclusion, and equality in the NFT and in the Web3 space. Wild Pixies is out of Singapore. The person who started it, she works full-time at a technology company, and this was her side hustle. Also just really interesting work in trying to empower women basically to kind of just find their voice in Web3, because Web 1 and Web 2, not a lot of women, not a lot of diversity for that matter. And Web 3, there are lots of interest groups fighting to make sure that Web 3 is more equal for all, and that women particularly are also part of the earning potential that's out there. So these are Boss Beauties. The floor price, this was a couple of weeks ago, last week, the floor price was 0.42 ETH. I just put that there just so I mentioned it before. It's the lowest amount of money that you can actually get into a project at the moment. If you go to OpenSea, you can find out what was the least somebody paid for an NFT. And that's always an indication of where the market is. This was redeemed 6 or 7 or 10 times more a couple of months ago. So all floor prices are down at the moment. And this is one of my favorite communities. It's called My BFF, and this is also a 10,000 NFT project. What they did, I thought was so incredibly smart, is they were like, if we learn together, we're going to earn together. And they appealed to women across the board, the LGBTQ community and beyond, and said, right, let's get in on this, and we're going to teach you. And they started with free online courses in Web3 and NFTs across the board, and they run an incredible education program which I follow as closely as I can. They have 3 talks a week, and I absolutely bought into this community, and those are my 2 of the NFTs that I have in the BFF community. And again, it's all about your digital passport, basically. When the community first started, and if you attended their first training session, you could mint a bracelet. Once I minted a bracelet, it allowed me the opportunity to be able to buy an NFT when the NFTs became available. And how did they know it was me? Well, I have a specific address. I have my own wallet address. Also, just remember, it's transparent. If anybody wants to know what NFTs I have, you can find my wallet and have a look. The idea of this open internet, the idea of transparency is fundamental to Web3, and something we could also talk about for hours, which is why this really is about the vision of having tech for good. Even though it is bad, it is about tech for good. And being African and from the continent, I'm just interested in what's happening, around the world. There are metaverses and incredibly diverse, amazing worlds being built and projects being started around the world. We tend to be quite American-centric when it comes to Web3, but there's incredible projects happening everywhere. In South Africa, it's known as Ubuntu Land, the metaverse there, and the artist Norman Catherine has been one of the first artists to embrace being not just a 3D artist, but also an NFT artist, and it's just been an exciting journey to watch the African experience. And then here in New Zealand, there are some, as I said, so many, in the art world, there are some NFT opportunities. Glorious launched last year, Dan Carter's syndicate that is looking at a different way of purchasing art, really about the visual experience, using New Zealand-based artists. And then just a project I've got my eye on, it's called Bowie on the Blockchain, and it's a project that actually was due to launch next week, but due to the Queen's passing, it's actually been delayed they haven't released the next date. And this is the foundation, the Bowie Foundation, which is run by his wife. They are putting a whole lot of his digital art pieces, he was a huge collector, for sale as NFTs to raise money for her global charity for countries and people in humanitarian crisis. So I think there is a huge amount that is of interest in being done in this space, where you can just see people and projects are motivated to create and build communities and projects that have a way of giving back and building knowledge, building futures. I can't wait for that to come out, actually. And then just briefly, this is a project I worked on earlier this year. It was, I would say it was a startup, an NFT project, but I've learned to understand that startups and businesses can just be enabled by NFT. This was a project aimed specifically at the crypto community, in fact, the very crypto savvy and crypto wealthy community. And for them to pay for a membership, because this is what it is, it's a club called the Krillist. And the Krillist is a club where membership just happens to be paid for using an NFT. But because the target audience was crypto savvy, crypto wealthy, you didn't even have to explain it. It's like, they probably wouldn't think about paying with it with fiat or just, current currency. It just wouldn't cross their minds. It just, of course we're going to pay for this with Ethereum. So this was a project out of the US with a global team. The community team was in Bali, New Jersey. The creative agency were in Chicago. The dev team were in Austin. And I was up at all hours of the night because, it was definitely, again, it was a US-centric project and deep interest in whatever time worked there. Now, didn't really work for me. But anyway, it was really fascinating. It was building a membership club. A very big usage of NFTs is in membership. Makes sense, right? So if you buy an NFT, you become a member of something. It's very easy. You can take your membership everywhere with you. You can just use your wallet. You can just use your ID. You don't have to walk around with like the country club card, in the back pocket. It changes everything. I especially like working, I was the marketing and brand lead, and I just enjoyed working for me personally on the design side and developing out the brand. And then, of course, when we got the actual NFTs, there was a huge story and narrative behind it, and that's the part I enjoyed the most. The multiple time zones, the quality of the team, and the fact that at the time of launch, we went into a massive bear market were all things that didn't bode well for the project for me personally. And after 3 months, I hopped off and went on to other things. But the experience was invaluable, if not painful, especially sort of 4 or 5 a.m. meetings. And I just think, it made me think about what projects like these, who are they benefiting, who are they for? The price of the NFT here was extraordinarily high. It was a barrier for entry for most, and I questioned the value of building more. We don't need more elitist communities, and this kind of was an interesting dynamic for me in creating these gated communities. Like, why are communities so gated, and if so, for what reason? Anyway, so what have I learned from that brilliant, if not painful at times, learning curve? So what I've learned generally, which I'll just share with you, and maybe there's something here, and that is, firstly, I have a whole new vocabulary. I've had to learn about a lot of things that, this is, like I said, you know, makes me feel like half geeky, half cool. But I don't know, anyone know what any of these are? I've kind of mentioned a couple. Anyone know what a DAO is? This is very much part of Web3. Thank you. Okay, so it's a decentralized autonomous organization. One of the defining principles, defining potential ways of working in Web3 will be these communities, which I've spoken about, which actually become, if you imagine them to be the board of these projects. Every person who owns a token or owns an NFT has a decision-making vote in what this community actually does and how they go forward. I mean, that's it at its basic. Rugged, I told you what that was, that project Pixel One with our friend in Hamilton, that was what a rug pull is, or being rugged. Those poor people who handed over lots of cash and never got to see it. That was a huge rug pull. The floor price I mentioned is the lowest price that an NFT can be purchased for in that community, or what you could probably get away with. Those are all pretty low at the moment. It's all relative. You've got to have huge faith that the bear market's going to kick back in. I mean, the bull market's going to kick back in, and they'll go back to the levels that we saw in November, if not exceed them. DYOR, I love, which is do your own research. And then what I titled this talk, which was WAGMI, we all going to make it. And it's really like the rallying cry in Web3 when the projects go up, down, all around, that it's all okay, people. If you're in the space, you're going to make it. It's all going to be okay. And the notes to myself so far is, firstly, you're never too old to learn something new. And you don't have to know everything, but it's great to know a little bit about the space. It's going to affect us, it's going to affect our families, our children, and it's going to affect the future. As much as climate change is, I absolutely believe how we handle the new wave of technology is going to be hugely impactful too. It's not too late. We are absolutely in our infancy on the bell curve, if you can think about it. We're like down here at the bottom. Whatever you've learned today or picked up today is more than most people that you meet may even know. It's just the beginning. And, you know, it's not too late. Don't feel overwhelmed or intimidated. I feel overwhelmed and intimidated every day. And there's opportunity for all to make it a better place. If we build better things, we build better communities, we build better work, we work with better people, there's a strong chance that that what we build will be better. And there's opportunity for everyone. And global teams are the new norm. I'm sure most of you work somehow with or among global teams. And ideas are borderless. It doesn't mean it's easy. There's still nothing like, you know, being in a room together and having a conversation. But I think technology is going to go a long way to even enable us to sort of step in and be together in a way that may not feed off our kind of energy, but it will be there. And then there are always bad people that will take advantage of others, and they're incredibly smart people who have decided to place themselves on the hacking side of technology, where there is huge opportunity. And so that also pushes technology to get better and better. So I think that's the upside, right? And then there's so much freely and generously available. All, you know, you just start. You know, you read something, and there's so much content out there, and some of it is fantastic. And then I think to kind of end off is, for me, it comes back always to creativity. It always comes back to how we create is how we innovate. And I think that without the attention to what things look like, what the stories are behind them, how they're created, how we actually leverage creativity, is always going to be, for me, the answer. And the side of the battlefield that I'll always kind of be on the sidelines for. And yeah, the best way to predict or the future is to create it. And this was supposedly said by, I think it was said by Franklin D. Roosevelt in the research. It's also apparently said by Albert Einstein. It's actually thought to have been said by Peter Drucker. And the insight for me is that if this was an NFT, like Jack Dorsey's first tweet, if this was an NFT, there'd be no argument because it would be in a smart contract on the blockchain. Now it's still up for debate. So I think, yeah, how we create, what we create, why we create will be why we're all going to make it, and why there'll be success and prosperity and hopefully positivity for all in this new world that we're going to. So thank you. I don't know how we are for time, but probably just on it.
Yeah. Questions?
Yeah.
I actually have a question, and it's
I hope I can answer it.
it's about technology, but more about how it relates and translates into real life. So if you're wealthy in this metaverse brave new world, how does that translate to your ability to purchase a car in real life or purchase a house in your life? Is there a crossover or a way of yeah.
Of blending.
Well, yeah, can you buy things in real life if you're wealthy in crypto?
Yes, because your cryptocurrency can be extracted as actual money. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Not through the banks.
Not through the banks or traditional banks. For example, in New Zealand, the people who, I don't know if you've heard of a company called Easy Crypto. So Easy Crypto, for example, is an exchange that will take New Zealand dollars, convert it into whatever cryptocurrency, and then do it the other way around. So you can access it. It's not seamless yet. I think it will become more and more seamless.
Kind of a little bit like the old currency conversion that we went overseas years ago. You have to go to the foreign exchange office
To find, yeah.
your rands and get your US dollars and that we
Yeah. No, there is absolutely a way to extract your wealth or to extract your funds out of crypto. You're just hopefully going to do it when you're in a bull market and you've got an upside on whatever you've invested in.
I think something like entities, so those board apes that actually launched paid about $200 for them. Now they're worth $150,000. So if you put that in and sell it, you get $130,000
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, no, they are. I mean, the bull run or the crypto bull runs have made gazillionaires. There is a new wave of crypto millionaires that have completely and slowly made their money in these markets in various different ways, not just NFTs. NFTs are really still on the surface of it. Well, for some have really made their money through the NFT ecosystem. But lots have just made their money trading cryptocurrency, buying low and selling high. I don't know, do you want to add anything? Yeah.
This is your talk. To
Yeah.
answer that question, like Easy Crypto is one of the many ways in New Zealand of onboarding your fiat. You can log in there with, you can set up an account with them, and you essentially you transfer directly out of your bank account to them. You choose which cryptocurrency you want. But then you have to be very careful with a lot of security issues around where you put your cryptocurrency. Do you want to put it into a cold wallet? Do you want to put it into a hot wallet? There's so many different options.
Yeah.
It's a scary space, like Lauren said. It's massive, and there's so many rabbit holes you need to go down. So every step of the way, do it very carefully. And just remember, no one will ever contact you or send you a mail asking you for seed keys or wallet IDs or anything like that. If anyone says that or does it, then just switch off or close the app or whatever. Because as soon as you join a Discord community, there will be spammers that when people are just coming and send you messages saying, "Oh, you need some help? Let me help you."
or impersonate people.
Yeah, I'll impersonate moderators on the group, so you just have to be super careful. And so even with Easy Crypto, their website's really good. And this is not a plug for Easy Crypto, but their website's good, and there's lots of information about security on the website. And there's other ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting space, and I think that's what's happening at the moment is that there's a lot of, while there's this bear market, everybody's building better security, better access. It will feel a lot seamless as time goes on and less clunky. You sit with your hard wallet, you plug it in, and you have to go through a whole number of very manual sort of processes, and it feels a bit overwhelming at first, but then it's actually not. And these communities have a couple that I've joined and actively a part of. They're incredibly rewarding, and that's been very interesting to me. Any other questions? Yeah.
So this may be a longer conversation or talk in itself, but with your background in art, and fine art, and a lot of art collection, and you also this week, what are your views, or have you had a chance yet to kind of reflect on what's going on with AI art and DALI and AI generated?
Oh. It's such a big question. It is, and I'm actually not sure. I can't seem to reconcile it completely for myself at the moment. I went to sort of, it's just like an art in the park. I went to have a look at for the first time at Eden Park last weekend, and being there in that environment with physical artworks and physical people and the energy that you get when people are around art, talking about art, interested in art, buying art, is very difficult for me to think of it being replicated. At the same time, I'm deeply interested in and have a great respect for digital art and the voice that it's finding in the art world, and the newfound sort of respect that it's finding through this evolution in digital possibility. I'm even, I don't have an opinion either way about Glorious, but I think what they're doing, and actually I read a piece about it the other day, and it made total sense to me. So one of their sort of reasons for starting, or one of their insights or their customer insights, is that actually a lot of people who, let's say, have enough wealth to purchase an NFT of that standard, and to have it promoted to go on the Samsung frame art television, which is really about their model. Their model is that you take a piece of digital art and you show it in your home like you would. And one of the insights to that was that actually people are downsizing hugely. And actually, so I mean, for me, at the end of the day, behavioral science is critical in this whole journey. They're saying people are downsizing, people are moving into smaller apartments. That doesn't mean to say we can't have beautiful artwork or something beautiful and visual to have a look and enjoy. And so this idea is very appealing to people who, and I don't mean you don't have to be have wealth. You just have to feel that this is an investment you'd rather make in a piece of digital art as opposed to a piece of physical art, because it's come everywhere with you, and you can display it in your home whenever you want to. You can have multiple displays, and it was something that actually I hadn't thought about. It was purely based on kind of behavior and common sense, is actually to integrate the technology in your home and actually enjoy art on it in a way you may not have thought about before. So I found that. Nadine's sorry, just to say, Nadine is a journalist writing for art and the art sector. Yes, just give you a little.
I think it's not just at the moment between taking what is existing digital artwork and proving it is digital artwork, and then kind of try and say what you actually bought, as opposed to an actual existing digital art world that was starting to find a way to create value for the person that was created. And if you look around that, it's kind of that is that kind of work.
Yeah, I think it's a personal preference, but I think it's also interesting to think about a hybrid way of actually enjoying artwork and enjoying art. I mean, on the AI side, sorry, just to finish on the thing, I don't feel like, I don't have to, I'm lovely other friend here, Lara, who might run away in on the ARA side of how, creatively, boundaries are being literally broadened and expanded to include that, and that, yes, we may have some AI technology that can create artwork. And how will we, or will we attach value to it? Get my head around that.
I think it's so early. It'd be interesting to learn. We're just so fascinated right now by AI, but will it come to watch this? I don't know. And how will that compete with human creativity? I think it's yet to play out.
Yeah, that's true. It is yet to play out. Yes. I mean, I like to think, even after we look at it's all about human nature, right? So I'd like to think that people are going to do the right thing with AI. I wasn't at the conference you were, I'd like to hear more, but I think we want to err on the side of good thinking and good decisions by good leaders in the space that guard us from ourselves, really. That's an interesting part. But yes, I think we should look into that.
Lauren, thank you so much. We'll just wrap up quickly. It's 15:15 and people need to go, otherwise grab a coffee and a pastry. But thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for speaking. We'll pop the recording up if anyone wants to watch it again or share it. And we'll have another episode. Thanks.
Thank you.